in terms of that, when you're compiling that data, and you mentioned there before the surveys, how many people do you have to survey in order to have what you need to prove your case? Is it 10? Is it 100, 1,000? How many do you need?
Yeah, I think, it really depends on the style of survey you're doing too. So if you're doing one which is just really generic, kind of multi-choice, tell us your age, location, that kind of stuff, you probably want probably about 100 to give you a good kind of indicator. However, if you're doing one that's got a lot more kind of responses, we tend to say, like, they might be writing in exactly why they love your product or what they don't like about it, or something along those lines. We've had success from anything from about 40 to 50 responses, but you do want to make sure you've got some. So you don't need to do the whole. This is a starting point. What it's designed to give you is some things to test, so that you can start to, so that you're not just starting from scratch, right? So if you're trying to reach a segment, you want to see if you can find any kind of little things to test. It's not always going to be effective, and it might not work on an advertising background, but you want to have some kind of things that you can, a starting point. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing it everywhere and going, oh, well, we'll see. And that's when you waste a lot of money.
Speaking of wasting a lot of money, I'm guilty of that myself. Now, you probably don't know this, but I had a previous business before Story League, and it was a media training business. And I decided to go it alone when it came to social media ads, and I chose Facebook, and I ended up with a bunch of likes from a whole number of people in Indonesia. No idea why. It's just what happened, and I spent $1,000 for that. It clearly went wrong and didn't get me in front of the right people at all. You're right. It is a lot of money wasted. When it comes to setting a budget, is there any advice around that?
Absolutely.
What should you be looking at?
First and foremost, you need to understand what your outcome is. So this is where knowing your numbers is so important. So if I get a client who comes to me and says, okay, I have a budget of $1,000. I want to get 1,000 leads, and maybe their target market is quite niche. It could be, it could be a builder who's trying to work in a few suburbs of Sydney. To get $1 lead, and if you think about it as a builder, say for example, when they're selling their final thing, it might be that it's for $1 million and they make a $200K profit off it, right? So I'm going to say to them very clearly, then, well, you're not going to get leads for $1. If you did, they're going to be cheap and crap. So we need to figure out what's a realistic cost per lead, and then from how that works through your sales funnel. So if you know that if you get 80 leads, one of them converts into a sale, then we can start to figure out, okay, well then you need to have 80 leads at $100 a lead. Then that's a bit different to a $1,000 budget. So again, we will always work with a client up front to understand their business metrics and then how that translates. Now, the other thing that you can do as well is that if you've already got an existing ad account and you're going, okay, this isn't working, I need to get someone else to look at it. Getting a team that understands what they're doing can start to look at what your current metrics are within the platform, and really devise I'm old school, so it'd be a media plan, right, or a forecasting document based off the existing numbers and then your goals as well. So that will give you a good indicator as to what you should be spending to get your outcome. And then you might say, well, I don't have that budget. So then we can readjust realistically based off what you can get within the auction to be able to get there, and it might be that we go, hey, well, maybe you should put ads as only 40% of what your marketing spend is. You might be better off putting the rest of it into PR or something along those lines. So it needs to, again, this is why I'm so strong about making sure you understand your own business and understanding what you're trying to achieve. Because otherwise you could just go, yeah, like, sorry, Luke, but like you did, it's just like you throw something out like that and not having a clear kind of direction or plan around it. It's so easy these platforms are designed to chew up your money. They really are. So you need to kind of hack the system all the time to make sure you're getting one or two steps ahead of it.
All right, it's quite clear to me already that someone shouldn't be doing this alone. They should partner with you or another social media ad specialist out there. But if someone does do it on their own, I'm absolutely daunted by the prospect of looking at Creator Studio. But if they do want to do it, what are some of the technicalities that they need to step through in order to create an ad that's ultimately going to be successful? Absolutely.
And look, and I totally acknowledge that there are not always going to be times where businesses can afford to outsource, or they, just maybe they are wanting to give it a go internally, and that's fine. So what I would highly recommend you do is firstly, get someone in the business And if it's just you in the business, find someone who knows numbers, who gets numbers, because this is a numbers game. So if you're not very strong understanding data and you just think that that's an absolute nightmare, you're just not going to, it's not going to work. So find someone, and that could be, you might have, you never know, you might have someone who's in your, operations team or someone who's just really gets that kind of stuff. So just figure that out first, because it's about getting the right skill set. And then the good thing about something like Facebook and Google as well, there is fantastic training available for free on how to use these platforms at a beginner level, but still you can get success from it. So Facebook has a thing called Facebook Blueprint, which is a whole training course on how to utilize all of their ad platforms. Google has Google Academy, so very similar. And so you can go through and actually get certified to do that. Make sure they do it. And then the other thing I'd recommend as well, there are multiple groups out there across Facebook primarily, for Google as well, that people can join. And there are experts out there that are giving advice on how to run ads and think outside the square. So, if you can't afford an agency, there's some of these groups out there that might cost $100 a month, but in doing that, you get support and training from experts who know what they're doing. And there are some very good ones out there. But don't go at it alone, because if you don't have experience, it's like anything in life. If you never got any experience, then you always learn from other people who have done it, and you get 10 times faster results by doing that. So it's just a matter of doing the time, and don't rush into it. Learn it first and do a little test budget, and also make sure that if it's not working, pull the plug quickly, because it's very, very rarely it'll turn around. You'll know very quickly if things are gonna work within an ad.
All right,
it's not like SEO. It's not like SEO. It won't sit there for 6 months and then suddenly work. It doesn't work like that.
Cool. All right, we've got the media plan in place. We know who the target audience is. How much importance do you place on the visual creative design of the ads as well?
Oh, it's paramount. That's why I said if you don't have good creative, you can only hit so far. Like sometimes you can get a bit of traction, sure, if it's something that's maybe a general lead gen kind of service-based industry. But, if you think about e-commerce, if you don't have great photos of your product or a really clear way of demonstrating it through either a video or something like that, people just won't get it. Unless they actually understand and they see a product and go, oh, that's a blah, blah, then they're not going to connect. You've got seconds to connect with people on social media. So you've got to make sure your content stands out. We had a client recently, and they're builders, right? And we went previously before we went with them on their creative. The brand was a bit off, and they didn't have the visual representation of the actual homes they were building. As soon as we did that, like night and day changed, because people saw it and went, "That's what I want," and then clicked on it and went through. So it's so important.
So what about in the case of someone not having great images to use or a video? Would you advise using stock images off a free website or anything like that, or is that just a no-no?
I think in certain environments it can work, but you've got to be if you're going to do it, go to some of the ones that you actually have to pay for. Otherwise, what I see a lot is people using the same free stock ads images all the time, and it just, people know. But another thing as well is be really careful that you're using images that reflect your target market. So I find a lot of these sites are very either US or European focused. So people recognize if someone doesn't look like them. So you need to make sure that your content is reflecting what that person, your target market, who they are and what they represent and what they're doing. It's the small details, and people will pick up these visual cues. So look, you can do nowadays you don't need to go and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a photo shoot, for example. Like, you can get some great content on your phone. There are great little courses out there on how to do it. But it's having authentic content is better than having manufactured stuff. Any day of the week.
Is video better than images, or a combination of both, or images over video? Combination. Yeah, why is that?
Because it depends on how you're utilizing it. So, for example, if I'm trying to educate someone on a brand new product or service, video tends to work really well, because you get a lot more information in a smaller time, quick, faster, right? However, sometimes images can work really well if you're doing retargeting, which means that someone's already been to your site and they're kind of just looking through. Maybe they've already watched a couple of videos, but they don't necessarily want to keep watching them. It might just be that you're retargeting with a video, which is a testimonial from a client, a static image with a testimonial, right? So what I always say in these situations, it will vary dependent on your client. You have to test this stuff. Like, we can always assume and create a plan, but when we create ad campaigns, we will test every time. Video, it might be a collection ad, which is like a collection of different images, and we'll do static images. Stories we'll do, like, we will test it, because you never really know which one's going to fly, and unless you test them in isolation, you're not going to really know. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do as ad buyers is get you the best results at the lowest cost in the auction, right? That are actually resulting in either sales or leads. So we need to be making sure we're testing not only our audience targeting, we need to be testing our creative targeting, and then placements as well. What I mean by placements is it a Facebook newsfeed, or is it an Instagram newsfeed, or is it a video? That's a creative execution. So by testing them all the time, we can start to see, again, looking outside the box of just putting one ad up. We need to find different combinations to make it a cost-effective outcome.
And is the copy that goes with the ad equally as important?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because if you it depends on how you're selling to someone, right? So say if the first touch I've got to someone is buy me now, right?
It's not going to work.
No, you're just going to go, they're going to shut away.
Skip.
Like, copy is really important. The other thing with copy is that a lot of the time, especially with mobile devices, and people might be on the tram, on the train, or at work, they don't actually have their volume on all the time. So they are still reading and taking in copy quite a lot, whether it be captions or even just the main messaging, but never underestimate copy. We test copy with our creative as well. So it would be, we might have one lead with one message and try another one to see which one captures it. And also on particularly Instagram and Facebook, you only get the first kind of sentence really for someone to click on. So you've got to be really smart about how you're capturing that and to get people to click to see more. So, it's all communication. So you want to be making sure that you're communicating in the clearest and most effective way to that audience, that they take the inspired action. So, copy is pivotal. And then again with copy, you want to make sure that if they are seeing an ad and it's saying one thing, that when they click through to your website, it marries up to what's going on there. Because if it's a massive disjoint, they're going to go, what the hell? This makes no sense. So you've got to think about the whole consumer experience going through from one ad through to a website or a sales page, whatever it may be. It needs to be consistent. You need to have a consistent tone of voice. Otherwise, it ain't going to go. And no spelling mistakes also.
Yes, that's why you'd hire a copywriter, right? If you didn't have one in-house.
Yeah. Or, do you know what? Like, I always say, no matter what you're doing with ads, get someone else to look at it if you're just working on it alone.
Absolutely.
Because you get too close to it. I do. Like anything that I do within our business, we make sure that we've got a second person checking it because...
Absolutely. Katia, we are a copywriting team and we have editors in place. Like, there is no way it would just go to me and then go to a customer. Not a chance. Because, you've got, yourself, you've got a million other things on your plate. You read it quickly, you think, oh, cool, no worries. And then all of a sudden it goes up and it's problematic. So, no, there's got to be a chain of command, so to speak. And, yes, make sure other people are looking at it because they come with fresh eyes. So, based on what you know, based on the time that you've been in the game here, is there one particular ad that seems to work across various different industries, or is it just, a case-by-case scenario?
It's really hard to answer. But look, if I was going to start out and just create one ad on, let's say, Facebook or Instagram and I needed to get leads. So, as I said, service-based industry, there's an ad unit called a lead ad. That would be where I'd start. It's very, very easy. It basically just, it's a simple call to action. Leave your information, we'll get back to you. It's the ones where you click on it and it automatically fills in your name, phone number, and you can select those parameters. But that kind of business, if you have minimal budget, start there because you'll actually get something from it. When it comes to e-commerce, a whole different ballgame. There are so many variables in that. And honestly, right now, like it depends on what you're doing, but like what I've found a lot with brands that have come through and are fairly new, utilizing video to get your brand across. If you're a a business owner and you've got maybe 2 or 3 people and it's your baby, people want to buy from people. So utilizing a video format to be able to really communicate what you stand for, what you're about, and that small business ethos, that tends to work really well. And also demonstrating your product, right? Like if you've got a fashion product and you show how to style it, people don't necessarily know how to take a few tops and put it into their own way. So giving them different opportunities. So video content's really strong, but again, there are other elements that go around it to make it profitable as well. That's just the awareness side. Then you need to kind of go look at retargeting and all that kind of thing. But it's again testing. You've got to test and see what works for your business, and that's where you've got to have a bit of content behind you to make sure that you've got content to test. You've got some strong messages that you know that your audience is going to connect with, whether that be through copy or through your visual creative, and then applying that in the different environments to test the different audiences that are relevant to you and seeing what works.
Katia, you've been brilliant. We're going to put your details in the episode copy when it goes up onto YouTube, so people will be able to get in contact with you. You're a legend. I highly recommend anyone going speaking to Katia and her team because she will get you a result. I said that, not them, so disclaimer, but it will work anyway because they're a brilliant team. So thank you very much, Katia.
Hey, you're so welcome. And the other thing is that I think the big thing about an agency is that they should say if they can't help you or they're not the right fit. So
absolutely. That's why I said the disclaimer, because it might not work for any particular or every particular industry. But you would be stupid not to go with Misfit Digital.
Oh, very kind.